Leeds United have just finished their match against Bristol City and eventually came out 2-1 winners, although it could have been a hell of a lot more. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail later on, in addition to discussing what happened in the match, what it ultimately means for Leeds United going forwards, and how well we did, including my man of the match. So, first up, one of the main things I noticed happening was the fact that Bristol City were looking to time waste from the very first minute. It's something we shouldn't really be surprised about in the Championship this season, but I mentioned it in my preview video that Bristol were a side that were likely to try and frustrate us and sit in a little bit and just let us play football in front of them. As the match wore on, that ended up not happening so much, but you could tell early on that they were taking as long as they could over goal kicks, throw-ins. They were a team that wanted to get one goal and get out. Something else that I noticed very early on was Archie Gray ended up playing as a right back. That is something that not many people expected in the slightest because he hadn't really played there much this season before, although he'd sort of covered for Ayling when Ayling was bombing on down that flank. Ayling playing there is good, but I didn't mind Archie Gray playing there either. He doesn't quite do the attacking down the wing as well as Luke Ayling does, but he's comfortable enough in that position and he did a lot of the tracking back that sometimes Luke Ayling struggles with. You've got to keep in mind, Archie Gray is a 17-year-old. He, of course, has the energy for that, and it ended pretty fine to me. There was a slight structural change that I wasn't the biggest fan of, where we might have lost a little bit of control or creativity in the midfield as a result of Gray not being there and Kamara being there instead. But there are worse issues to have, to be honest, than one of your midfielders is actually a very good right back. Then, as the game went on, we had the first big highlight that happened, and that was Georginio Rutter's miss from about a yard out. I'm not entirely sure how this happened. He might have just misjudged the bounce of the ball. There was a cross that came in, I think, from Creno Somerville, bounced quite close to Rutter, who was a yard out, unchallenged, had a shot, and it went straight up. Not perfect, and I thought it could be the start of a fairly difficult match for Rutter, and I thought it would spark all the debates again about the Piroe Rutter stuff, despite the fact that Farke tried to put an end to that earlier this week. And it wasn't that much of a signpost for the match ahead. Rutter, in spite of that issue, was a fundamental part of our completely smooth and fluid movement and attack. You'd have Rutter dropping in from time to time with Somerville overlapping him, the same on the other flank with Piroe staying deep and Dan James pushing on. Dan James, again, was absolutely incredible for me. Like, as much as we might call him a pace merchant and stuff like that, his deliveries this season have been good, and he managed to get a goal, which was very, very well worked. It was an opportunity where I think Rutter pushed forwards, tried to play a ball across the box, maybe to Somerville, who scuffed a shot, and Dan James was there to clean up. It's another sign of the fact that our front line being so creative and good at getting into various different positions, rather than Rutter as a number 9, he will stay there. That definitely didn't happen all match. Piroe is a 10, he'll stay there forever. No, he won't. He will roam into those number 9 positions, and the wings will switch and stuff like that all from time to time. And it's a really good sign because it means you've got enough players in the box to finish off chances when you need them there. Something else I noted from the front line was Georginio Rutter did a lot of grafting all the way throughout the match. It wasn't just in the final third where you were seeing his tricky footwork and forcing people off the ball. There were a few times towards our own right corner flag where he was being challenged by someone, I think 2 or 3 players in reality, and he just came away with the ball and played a nice calm pass to Archie Gray after a nice little bit of footwork that lasted 10 to 15 seconds. He can take on players anywhere on the pitch, and the fact that he's got the energy to do it both in our own box and in their box means that we have a huge asset to play with for the entire rest of the season. As the match kept going on, things were looking good for us, and then Bristol City managed to score. It was from a corner, it was nicely floated in, but there were a few issues with it. First of all, it was Kamara's man that managed to score, and I noticed that Kamara and a lot of the players around him just didn't jump for the corner that came in. Whether it was one of those corners where the height is weird and it's impossible to judge its trajectory and where it's going to come, you still need to be winning those fights. Someone else noticed that Illan Meslier didn't run out and solve the problem, but I feel like that's a part of his natural goalkeeping style. A lot of the time, Meslier is, from set pieces at the very least, a fairly passive goalkeeper. He will react rather than being proactive. He'll wait for the shot and deal with the shot rather than dealing with the ball before the shot. And this is completely different scale. From time to time, I'd 6-a-side goalkeep, and I know that's entirely different. But a lot of the time, there is that fear of if I come for this ball and I miss, it's a tap-in. Or if I try and catch the ball rather than punch it, and drop it, then again, it's a tap-in. It's a conscious decision that Meslier makes, and I think a lot of the time it works out. This time it didn't, but that is just going to happen from time to time. You can't win them all. Then we get into the second half, and the first note I've got is Piroe's precise finish into the corner was absolutely brilliant. Joel Piroe was the subject of a massive debate in the press conference earlier this week, where Daniel Farke was trying to work out who he wants to play at number 9, and he went through 5 different 9s and explained why, of all of those, Rutter is playing at number 9, but he's having Piroe on the pitch as well as a sitting in behind player. And I think he proved why today. His finishing is fantastic, not just from in the box, but from outside the box as well. This nice long-range finish, tucking it into the bottom right-hand corner just outside the keeper's reach, was absolutely perfect, and it proves that if you have someone who can finish from anywhere playing at number 10, you're not really missing out. Admittedly, there was the moment earlier in the match where I think Piroe might have finished that chance that Rutter had from about a yard out, but there's no guarantee of that. And to be honest, he scored anyway, so it's fine. Something else I discussed with Joe Wainman on Just Joe Football Show earlier this week was the fact that Pascal Struijk has had a major step up this season, and that continued in this match. He was very good at putting himself all about the place and cleaning up chances before they even managed to emerge for their side. And I think a good part of that might come from the fact that Joe Rodon is by his side. There's a lot of confidence in this back line right now, with Sam Byram playing both creative and defensive football to the highest possible standard. You have Joe Rodon, who is an absolute rock. Occasionally he'll make a silly foul or give away a yellow card, but that's fine because he's stopping chances by doing that. And Pascal Struijk is just impeccable at the moment. There is nothing to question about that. Our backline is brilliant. I don't think they made any mistakes. The only issue was from a corner, and it wasn't any of those defenders that lost the man. So nothing bad to say about the backline at the moment. Then we had Rutter's goal that was disallowed. That was definitely a little bit offside. He was a little bit unlucky, to be honest, because I think the player that was standing next to him stepped up just a tiny bit of a second beforehand, and there's a lot of linesmen that just wouldn't call that offside because it was very, very tight. He just didn't get away with it this time. And he was really good at creating chances along with Dan James. Dan James, whose crossing has been impeccable this season, didn't add to his assist tally today, which is a little bit of a surprise because he's been doing that all season long. But it worked out, didn't it? He still got his goal. Was it his first of the season? I can't quite remember. I think he got another one already, but you're not going to complain when goals are coming from absolutely everywhere rather than just Piroe and Rutter. Bamford came on fairly late, and he did that thing again where his pressing is fantastic and his movement is pretty good, but I feel like he was sort of responsible for overthinking things a lot of the time. That overthinking is not a serious issue right now, but it could be against better teams or in cup matches against Premier League sides, because there was a little bit of hesitancy in almost all of our attacks, which led to us not getting the chances that we deserved a lot of the time. One of the players that was not a part of this, but that could be an issue in itself, was Creno Somerville. A lot of the time it felt like Somerville was a little bit selfish. He was just keeping the ball for himself rather than playing obvious through balls and stuff like that. Now, on the pitch, it might have looked completely different. An obvious through ball to us could be impossible for him. But it's easy to point out the fact that a few more through balls from Somerville, rather than trying to take on a man again, would probably lead to more goals. This was a match that we honestly could have scored 4 or 5 goals in, and we didn't, and that meant that at the end we invited some late pressure. And that also came from taking on some attacking players and replacing them with defenders. So Ayling and Cooper came on towards the end. I completely understand that. You're just shoring up the back line a little bit. But sometimes inviting late pressure like that when you're only a goal up is a serious risk, and in the long term, it could cause problems for Leeds United in the Championship. Ultimately, who do I think was the man of the match in Leeds United beating Bristol? I have to go Georginio Rutter again. He did that thing where he just doesn't stop running and creates chance after chance after chance for the players around him and for himself. He was unlucky to not get on the score sheet himself. He was a very nice save from their goalkeeper away from assisting a Somerville goal. I think he's our best player this season so far, and I know Ampadu has been incredibly solid, and he was again today, but I don't think Rutter really puts a foot wrong week in, week out. Of course, let me know in the comments below who you think the man of the match was. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I really like making them, so being able to continue making them and having the viewership that love it would be fantastic. Like the video if you enjoyed, and yeah, I will see you in the next one.